Sales Edge, and today, another special feature, Shop Talk. And we have an expert here. Guy's been around sales, running sales teams, CEOs of companies, and he is more than highly qualified. But before we move into that, the Sales Edge podcast is sponsored by Pici and Pici, which is a speaking, coaching, training, consulting firm, and sellmorevirtually.com, which is our membership platform. Every Thursday night, I'm out there live giving more and more content and coaching, e-courses, so much more coming. And our sponsors have done a great job underwriting this whole project. And I'm Joe Pici, your host. So today we have Ken Trupke. He's the CEO of Pro Trainings. I do want him to give you a little bit of his background and what qualifies him to know what a good salesperson is, how to manage that good salesperson, and how to be highly productive.
Wow, that's a big opening question there, Joe. Thanks so much, and thanks for having me. So I would say what qualifies me most is because I've seen the power of sales. I've been a consultant for the last 10 or 15 years. Prior to that, I was running a manufacturing company for about 15 years. And in that time, I've really learned that it starts with sales. Sales creates the top line that allows us to have a bottom line, and the business isn't growing if the sales aren't growing, and you need a team to do that. And so running companies, and now especially the last few years with Pro Trainings, really focused on appreciating and growing the sales team and making sure we're focused on our customers so that we can have a healthy business. And that's every business. Every business needs sales, and so it's an across the board requirement in business.
Ken, I'm going to start right now with asking you this question. There are people out there, whether they're exiting college, whether they're career change, whether they have been in NABR and they always wanted to be in sales, but they've never done it. None of these people have done it. And you're sitting with them, round table, and they say to the old sage, what's it going to take? What are you going to tell them?
Well, first off, I strongly encourage, and I did this with my own kids, but I encourage anybody that I talk to, especially people in college or just out of college or even high school and maybe thinking about not going to college, consider sales. It's such a great foundation. You don't have to do it forever, but just do it, commit to it for a year or two, because you're going to learn so much about business and you're going to learn so much about yourself. You're going to find out how much mental toughness you have. And when you find out it's not very much, you can find out how much you can improve it, because you're going to face rejection, and that's hard. And what are you going to do when you face rejection? Are you going to curl up in a ball, or are you going to get better and start figuring out how to make it happen and face less rejection and get more success? But you're going to learn about business. You're going to have conversations with people. In the end, businesses always involves people. In my consulting practice, the fix when it's a turnaround situation is never technical. It's never about the equipment or the product. It's about the people. There's some kind of misalignment. There's a communication issue. And in sales, that's all you do all day is talk to people and you get told no by people, but you're trying to have conversations. You're trying to get appointments. You're trying to negotiate and navigate. And mostly you're trying to ask good questions to learn about them so that you can help them. And that's going to serve you wherever you go next. But put some time in that, especially when you're 18, 20, 22, whatever. Like, why wouldn't you? What a great time to get some foundational skills.
Yeah, I remember when my father's generation, when you got out of high school, you served 2 years in the Army or something like that. And it kind of toughened you up. I think just like you said, when you come out of school, if you get in outside sales for 1 or 2 years and you never do it again, you'll never be hungry.
Yeah.
Because if you can sell, you can feed yourself. I see companies all the time where, the owner doesn't want to sell. They hire somebody who is outgoing and they said they could sell. And before you know it, they're out of business.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the one thing we know every business needs is sales. So if you can master that skill or at least get competent at it, you'll never want for work. And you can be valuable even if you go to a company and you're in marketing or you're in accounting or you're in operations, but sales, you can be given input. You can say, hey, what if we tried this? What if we tried that? I used to sell. Here's what worked for me. Hey, have we clarified our value proposition? Have we defined our target market? Just saying, guys, sales guys, you don't have to be the one to go do it, but if you've got experience, throw those things out there, and that's going to be valuable. Now people might be like, what's the marketing guy doing telling us how to sell? But hey, if you've done it before, you got some credibility, and they're not succeeding. That's why you're telling them. So why not?
Well, I was on a webinar yesterday. I was invited in to speak to 12 new entrepreneurs. They just opened a business. They don't know if it's pumped or stuff, buddy. They just they're excited. They have a business and they went into debt.
Oof.
And they're talking about branding. And I looked at the curriculum. I was the last speaker of the week. They've been with these people for 4 days. And I was going to do priority management. But this one said, well, Joe, we got this and we know this. And what would you say? I said, well, forget priority management for a second. No, I said, don't set it. Forget it. Your number one priority is you better go sell something. I said, what is your mechanism for selling? Because I don't care. I said, in fact, Dawn and I didn't brand for the first 3 years. We sold.
Mm-hmm.
And in those first 3 years, selling taught us who our market was and what they thought of us, and that created our branding. But I want to interrupt, and I want to go to a conversation we had. You were coaching Michael, who's one of my favorite people, who's dynamic in sales, but you had a conversation with him. I'd like you to share that conversation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So he's at a pretty large company. They're multi-$100 million business. And what they do is they bring in basically every new hire comes in as what they call an SDR, which is basically somebody who's setting appointments. And you're not going to have this, you're not the person who's going to have the sales conversation. That's going to be an account rep or account manager or somebody, but you're going to be setting those appointments. You're going to be making lots of calls. And they basically bring everybody in to do that job. And of course, everybody doesn't do very well at that job, because if it's your first time doing sales, it's tough. Even if it's not your first time doing sales, sales is tough. And so you may move on to marketing, or you may move on to operations, or you may move on to customer service, but you're going to start in sales because it's that foundational skill. And now and have an appreciation for what it takes to bring customers in the door. And you have an appreciation for what the sales team goes through, because you're having to do it even when you move on to something else in the company. So it was really interesting to me that they put that emphasis on sales so much. They bring everybody in to start there and then start moving people around after that, but to make sure everybody gets a taste of it. And of course, some people stay and some people move up. Michael's planning on moving up to stay as a professional salesperson. At some point, he's going to move on and he'll become probably
Michael
an
wants to own
entrepreneur.
the company.
Yeah. And that probably won't be a company he can end up owning. So he'll probably move on, but great experience and a great model to see what you like and don't like about funneling everybody through sales. Cause it's a lot of training without you're training more people than ultimately you're going to get value out of that training, because they're going to go and do something else. They're not going to be salespeople, and I would agree that they're going to get skills that they can apply because it's people skills. Right. So they might not need to be able to sell specifically in their new job, their new role in marketing or whatever, but they're going to have to ask good questions and be curious and clarify what they heard and all the skills that we learn in sales.
So what was that tipping point for you in your career when you said, I got this, that I understand and I can execute sales? When was it?
Oh, probably after your boot camp, because it was before that. I just thought I knew what I was doing. Now I actually probably know more about what I'm doing. It's a process. One thing I've been thinking about is what has changed in sales, because with all the things in the last 18 months or so, people are like, oh, it's a different world. Sales is different now. And people before that used to say that. And, back you hear the really get off my lawn guys with the, my day, we didn't have cell phones. It wasn't easy. We didn't have this interweb thing that we could just look, we had to go door to door. Well, yeah, it was different, but it was still fundamentally the same. You're still trying to find people to help and facing a lot of rejection. So what I've really learned is that it's not, because it's still people helping people is the foundation. The technology changes how we do things. Now we got webcams, and now we got webinars, and we got the internet, and we didn't have that before. We got smartphones, cell phones. But what's mostly different is you. is how much are you growing? And that's one thing that you've really helped me to stay focused on, is that, are you continually learning? Are you becoming a student of this? Are you really working to master it? If you're going to be a professional salesperson, you got to turn pro, and a pro studies their craft, and a pro practices. People don't end up playing arenas because they woke up one day and they walked out on stage and they were in the middle of an arena. They practice and did their scales and did their lessons. And football, same thing, right? You don't just wake up one day and who knew you're in the Super Bowl. There was a lot of 5 a.m. two-a-days and all that got you there. And so when you turn pro as a salesperson, you got to commit to it. And there's always something more to learn. There's always something new to take in and practice. You can't just take it all in. You got to put it out and practice too. You want to be the Sea of Galilee, not the Dead Sea. You got to have an inlet and an outlet.
Right.
So,
well, it's technology has changed, but people haven't changed.
Yeah, exactly.
Problems hasn't changed.
Yeah.
I mean, basically, the thousands of people you've coached, I've coached, the companies, when you sit down with people and you start digging when it comes to sales, there's only a few things that they want fixed. Usually they want more revenue, or you wouldn't be sitting there.
Right.
And if you get more granular, it always comes down to where are your leads coming from? How good are you at booking an appointment? And how many, like you said, core stories are you doing? It's the simple. And I would imagine in your position where you are leading and managing teams, of all the teams that you manage, the easiest ones to metric are your sales team.
Oh yeah, that's probably true. Probably in any business that's true, other than maybe manufacturing operation type shop floor. But yeah, pretty clear numbers and pretty clear measures of success, which can sometimes make it hard to keep people focused on the process and not the outcomes. Right. Say, hey, don't get too stuck on whether you won or lost on whether people said yes or no, as much as did you do what you said you're going to do? Did you make the calls you said? When you got on the phone, did you follow your script?
Absolutely.
Did you ask the questions that we talked about? Did you do all those things? Did you do what you controlled? And then if you did, then that's a win. And you got to get your head around the idea that, no, that really is a win, because that's the only thing I control.
So, and that's why we came up with that focus board I shared with you and your team. That focus board has like 14 categories of measurement. Only one of them is close the deal.
Yeah.
Okay. But if you're measuring those things, if you're measuring where your leads are coming from, if you're measuring the outbound calls, if you're measuring the inbound calls, if you're measuring your follow-ups and all of those things, then you win.
Yeah.
You win your process.
Yeah. Yeah. Get enough first downs and don't turn over the ball. Probably going to win some games, right?
Well, look at the best coaches out there. Really. The best coaches out there are more process driven and they get the results. They're not results driven without a process.
Mm-hmm.
And their processes usually can handle, if they lose a great player, they can still line up and play.
Yeah. Well, you see the football behind me here that, where's my hand? There we go.
I see it.
Yeah. It's a signed ball. One of my sons got me that for Christmas a couple years ago. It's a 2017 Packer team football. I think the Packers and the Patriots probably even better, an example of an organization that has a process and plugs players into the process. They don't build the process around the players. Right. The Packers have had a great run of success, and the Patriots as well, with having a process that you plug the right players in, and players that don't fit the process, doesn't matter how many Pro Bowls you've been to, you don't fit here, because we do it this way and we've been successful doing it this way. So yeah, process is key. Absolutely.
Well, it's funny because I got a client in Lakeland, Florida, and I was coaching the two owners and their two top managers. And we got into a slight disagreement because one of their salespeople kind of, whenever he wanted to, would go off the reservation and do whatever he wanted to do. And they go, well, how do you feel about that? I said, I wouldn't tolerate it.
Yeah.
They, what do you mean? We're just concerned with the numbers. I said, oh, is that right? And this one guy brings up, he goes, well, look at Allen Iverson. Brown, who was one of the toughest coaches in the NBA, really let him not come to practice or practice. I said, well, how many championships does Allen have?
Yeah.
None. How many teams has he played for? 8. Is that success? I said, so if you're building a team, everybody has to stay on the process.
Yep,
So what do you
absolutely.
have for closing remarks about this sales shop talk, Ken?
Oh, I love it. We talk. We're coming up on I think our 1 year anniversary now, and we've talked on average, I'd say at least once a week. So we've had 50 conversations a minimum, and I love it because I love talking about sales because ultimately it's talking about business, and I love business, love helping people and figuring out ways to bring value to the market. And so I, I just would encourage people, if you're in sales, make sure that you're learning and studying and listening to podcasts like Sales Edge and reading books and getting education and keep upping your game. You asked me, when did I figure out that I kind of mastered it? No, never. And I don't really expect to. I just
Right.
expect to continue to get better. And I would encourage anybody who's in sales to do that. And if you're not in sales, if you have the opportunity, get in sales. Do it like we talked, maybe a year or two, and just commit to being an outbound, outside salesperson where you got to really go out and hunt and get after it. You'll learn a ton of skills that after you've done it, you can go back and do whatever it is that you like better or different. But those are going to be with you for your life, and they're really, really valuable. So obviously, big fan of sales.
Well, Ken, you've been awesome. In the first interview, you told them how to get in touch with you, but
Yeah.
give it to them again, please.
Sure, absolutely. The easiest way is pick up the phone, 616-822-2998. And I will give you a call back if I'm not available, but I'd love to connect on the phone. That's face to face, is that way is always great. You can also go to my website, kentrupke.com. Pretty simple. And I've got hundreds of videos on there talking about stuff like this. You can check some of that out. But again, reach out. I've got an email address on there. But pick up the phone, call or text, and let's get in touch. Love to find out what you've got going on and see how I can help.